to episode 75 of the S&D Podcast show. Dan, what's going on?
Not much. How's it going, Steve?
Not bad, not bad. The World Cup's in full swing. We're going to have Dan from the S&D Sports blog on with us a little later on. Talk some World Cup, talk some Stanley Cup Finals, talk some Islanders, a bit of everything.
The works. We also have our good friend Keith Black coming on from
Numberfire.
I don't know why I just threw a blank. Thank you for coming through.
Numberfire. And he's also written for us on the S&D Sports blog. He did that little draft blog for us.
Which was very fun and fun to read.
I'll tell you what, when I was uploading that was like, you go through each piece that he's written, and it's just I actually sat there and wrote down, basically just kept a journal of his thoughts, and it was cool.
It's pretty cool. Tonight's episode is pretty much a recap of the seasons. The winter sports are officially over.
Yeah, days of summer have begun.
They crowned both champions for the NBA and the NHL. Both series ended in 5 games. Unfortunately, I lost my bet to Adam Rank, so next time he comes to New York, LNB pizza on me for the both of us and whoever comes. So that's going to be fun. Yeah, Steve, I figured that he would invite himself over for that. But yeah, it was a good series. The Rangers played hard. They, I do want to say, I know everybody's questioning, it was really fun covering the Rangers this year. Like you mentioned, Steve watching and being at 99.9% of the Islander games, someone has to watch it and take care of the Ranger games. So I had no problem doing that, and I actually had a fun year watching them. So it was a great year. It just fell short. The Kings were just the better team, and the Rangers gave everything they got. One player I felt absolutely terrible about was obviously Henrik. He did everything to win the Stanley Cup. Unfortunately, players around him didn't help him out. And at the end of the day, that's what happens. It's a team sport. And the Rangers are going to be back next year, better than ever. Let's see what they're going to do with the off-season moves and everything like that. But the Ranger fan, I didn't really see a lot of disappointment. Of course, there was disappointment, but the general consensus, real Ranger fans that watched Game 1 to Game 5 of the Stanley Cup, was really proud of this team, and I saw it firsthand. So the Rangers, good job on them. They played their butts off. Let's see what happens the next couple seasons. A couple young players coming up with Kreider and so on. A couple of free agency moves, nothing major, but let's see what happens with the Rangers in the upcoming seasons. For the San Antonio Spurs, congratulations to them. I did not expect them to beat the Heat in 5 games, and it was just good job on them. They fought back after all the demons that they had last year in Game 6. So congrats to them on that.
That's just good coaching.
Absolutely.
There's no question. All right, I know you wanted to get that little rant out.
About the Mets?
There you go.
Pretty much, the Mets they got to stop finding ways to complain. They're going to try to... I read an article that they're going to try to move in the fences even more. How about playing to your advantage on the field? Become slap hitters. Be high on base average hitters. Not having to rely on home runs. I know it's nice to hit home runs, but your stadium's not built that way. You have to build your team to the park, not keep on moving it in. And ever since Citi Field has opened, players have been, instead of embracing it as it is what it is, making it an excuse for it. And enough with the excuses. I'm tired of watching this team underproduce. We mentioned last week that they were one of the better teams getting on base. It's about driving them in at their bottom of the National League, and that's obviously why we're tied for last place right now. So that's the Mets. And you gotta love that Travis d'Arnaud has 5 home runs and 10 RBIs in AAA right now.
Batting .400 also.
Go figure.
You mentioned playing to your advantage. One thing you have noticed is Sandy's trying to build a team to play to the advantage by bringing in all these top young pitching prospects. It's just a matter of learning to slap hit for doubles. Don't aim for the fence. For the fence, but hit the bottom of the fence where it's going to bounce off and you can end up on second.
And of course we're going to hit some home runs. Of course, it's baseball. We're going to get a hold of a couple. But I don't know.
This team gets homer happy, though. Yeah. Look what happened when they went to Yankee Stadium.
Yeah.
They scored what?
All the runs were home
15 runs in the 2 games? Something like that?
My problem is, and I said it since the day we signed Curtis Granderson and Chris Young, and I said it last week. They did a bad job. They pretty much signed the same player. They should have went after a high on base guy along with one of those 2 guys.
Like the Granderson. You saw the transition period in April.
Yes,
because
absolutely.
you know what? It was the first month he was facing a lot of these pitchers, and you saw it.
100%.
But he's picking it up,
Yeah.
and he's playing a lot better. He's getting used to playing at Citi Field.
Yeah.
He's getting used to playing in the National League, so that's a plus side. Chris Young needs to be cut.
Oh, that's my point. They at the start of the year they were literally the same player. Granderson, of course, has stepped it up tremendously. But they are basically the same player. You're not gonna be hitting any. They're not hitting over 270. Even 250 is asking a lot for both of them. And I didn't see the the smartness on picking up those two players who are actually the same player.
Well, like I mentioned last week, the second the bell rung that free agents were open, you heard that Chris Young signed with the Mets.
Yeah, we should have waited and maybe gotten Nelson Cruz. I know a lot of people were scared because of the whole
coming off the roids,
but honestly, Nelson Cruz has always been a hitter. So
you know what? He did it in Texas, which is not a hitter's ballpark. Texas is a pitcher's park. Granted, he was on the steroids, but still, he did it in a big park.
And he's doing it with the Orioles, too. Also a big hitter's park. But, hey, he's done it everywhere he's played, so I would have taken that. And I like his back of his baseball card a lot more than Chris Young. But
well, everybody does. Danny Olson got Chris Young because, the old school A's aspect. Moneyball. We're going to get this guy based on numbers that he had 4 or 5 years ago, thinking that he can still be that same player. That's the way we signed him. But anywho, we have a great show. And from Hockey Buzz, including from our website, the SND Sports Blog, which don't forget to sign up for our newsletter. We've had a lot of people do that. So we'll be getting one of those out very shortly. We also have Keith on, Numberfire, who's also written for us. Don't forget, SNDSportsblog.com. Check it out. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Instagram and Twitter, it's at SND_sportsblog. Facebook, it's SND space sports space blog. Easy, simple. Find us. Episode 75, scored by Division 1.1, and we'll be right back with Keith.
Alright, welcome back to the S&D Podcast. You just listened to the score by Division 1.1. Tonight we're going to start episode 75 with our good friend Keith Black. The San Antonio Spurs have knocked off the Miami Heat. There is no three-peat. Congrats to the Spurs. Keith, what's your takes on the series?
I mean, I'm not that shocked that the Spurs won. They probably should have won last year, and I think I mentioned that. But I think everybody is kind of just shocked at how fast the series ended. I mean, the Heat outside of Game 2 really didn't put up a fight. They kept it close in Game 1, but when LeBron went out, it was pretty much done from there, and the final score was a lot more of a blowout than it was during the game. But yeah, I mean, congrats to the Spurs. They just had, 1 through 12, they just had a better team, and Popovich all season long, he's given guys like Patty Mills and guys toward the end of the bench chances to play meaningful minutes, and you kind of saw how that mattered, because they didn't really need Tim Duncan or Tony Parker or Manu Ginobili to dominate. They dominated the Heat with a team of 12, and the Heat really, LeBron played really well, but he was really the only one, and that's kind of what he signed up for. If Bosh and Wade aren't playing like superstars, Braun's really going to have no help, and you kind of saw two different philosophies on how to build a team, 1 through 12 or 1 through 3, and 1 through 12 was much better, and they were probably better last year too. So it shouldn't be that much of a surprise. But
no, absolutely not.
Yeah,
it's really scary if one Ray Allen shot didn't go through.
Yeah,
on how much of a different. There would have been another. Yeah,
we'd be talking about repeat. one championship in 4 years, and the one championship would have come against a very inexperienced Oklahoma City Thunder team, who still doesn't look that ready to compete for a championship just yet. And it's really kind of miraculous. And you get a lot of luck along the way in every championship season in every sport. But to think about if Bosch doesn't grab that rebound and find Allen, and Allen hits that three, we're talking about this is a total disaster. And I don't think it's been a total disaster because 4 straight finals. I think a lot of teams would kill for something like that. But
we would as Knicks fans.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the old Buffalo Bills adage where they made the Super Bowl 4 straight times and lost all 4 of them. A lot of teams in the NFL would kill to be in the Super Bowl 4 years in a row, and I'm sure a lot of NBA franchises would kill to be in the finals 4 years in a row and win 2 of them. Not taking anything away from them, but the Spurs they really dominated this series. Popovich had the perfect rotations. They just played so well. I mean, it looked like they were playing a video game out there at times. And congrats to the Spurs. It's great. I think it's some of the best basketball that I've ever seen played at any level ever. The way that they played, and contributions from basically everybody that wore a Spurs uniform, and that's a prototypical winning franchise.
Well, on the bright side, when all of the Heat fans left during the second quarter this time, they didn't have to try and get back in during the fourth quarter.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, in fairness, when they left Game 3, I think it was, it was like midnight on a Tuesday. So, I probably would have left too, but I'm not going to say that I would have
blown out.
Yeah. I mean, the Knicks tickets probably would have cost me a lot more, so maybe I would have stayed and got my money's worth. But it was really late. People have to go to work.
Yeah, but they also had the video clip of during the second quarter of game. I think it was 4. They were just leaving. And
yeah,
it was still like a 6-point game.
Mm-hmm. It was late. They were allowed for most of the playoffs, the Miami Heat fans, and I give them as much crap as anybody. I relentlessly make fun of the Heat bandwagon, but with the best crowd in the world or without it, bottom line is the Spurs were the much better team, and that's why they won the championship. And that's why they deserve to win the championship.
They're just all around. The fact that you just have Duncan and Pop just leading that team.
Yeah, and they had. In Game 5, I don't think that they had they had very few points from Tony Parker at all during the game. I don't think that he scored in the first half, so, and they were winning large. They were dominating the game. And, like I said, they really didn't need huge contributions from any one person. They got some contributions from every man on the floor. And, I don't really know how you beat that. It's hard to put that kind of team together, but they bought in, they believed, and hey, congrats. It's awesome.
Absolutely. We're going to change gear before we talk about the Knicks, since that's a whole cluster by itself.
Mm-hmm.
What does LeBron do at the end of this offseason, or he gives us one more shot in Miami and then next year bolts?
I mean, I think people are a little bit quick to jump the gun on.
Of course, I'm with you.
He's definitely going to leave, because he did. I mean, he did leave before, and that's fine. But the people thinking that he's going to take a pay cut, he's not going to take a pay cut just so Mickey Aronson can avoid the luxury tax. He's going to take a pay cut if that means they're going to sign another meaningful player. And I think all 3 of them would do that if it meant getting somebody like Kyle Lowry or something like that. They're just not going to not take the money, just to return the same team. That doesn't make any sense to me. But I think he'll be in Miami Heat probably for the rest of his meaningful career. Maybe he'll have like one of those Paul Pierce and Brooklyn moments. But I think for the rest of his career, he's pretty much going to settle in Miami.
So you mean he wants to re-sign with Norris Cole being the only guaranteed contract on that team?
Yeah, I mean, if he can keep Bosch and Wade, and they can figure out a way to get somebody else in there, if they actually had cap room to work with. I mean, look at the guys who they got who came for a minimum. Your guys like Chris Anderson, who came for nothing and he was meaningful, and you got Beasley, who played well, and you got Allen, who played well. All these guys who just they want to play for this team and they want to go after the championship. And imagine if they had real money to spend, they might be able to get somebody really good. But we'll see. I think he stays.
And don't forget about the big Eddie Curry signing a couple years ago.
Yeah, well, he's got a ring, so.
Oh boy. Thanks, Jim Dolan.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's switch gears to the Knicks. I would like to hold my judgment on the whole Derek Fisher becoming our head coach, because it can go one or two ways. We've seen it work for the Nets last year with Jason Kidd, and we've seen Derek Fisher being a good lead player and being able to be a leader on the court and off the court. And what we've heard for the Lakers winning 5 championships, that he's a coach on the court as well as off the court. And who better put him better than Phil Jackson? Yeah. What do you think? First off, what do you think about that move? Was it a little bit of a reach for the Knicks to do that, or was there better options for the Knicks to go out? What are you expecting out of year one?
I mean, it was pretty. I wanted Mark Jackson.
Of course.
I thought he would have been the best signing, but the fact of the matter is, a lot of people will make fun of the Knicks. Oh, they signed this this guy who has no coaching resume whatsoever. But they've tried all these veteran coaches. They tried with D'Antoni, and they tried with Isaiah, and they tried with Larry Brown, and they had Lenny Wilkins, and none of that has worked. And this, to me, really looks like a Phil Jackson signing, and it indicates to me that Phil Jackson is in charge. And Dolan is not calling the shots, because I think if Dolan were calling the shots, we would be talking about them getting a Mark Jackson, or them overpaying for, one of these Rick Carlisle type of guys who they have a name or something like that, but they're not necessarily the right fit. And, I'm going to remain optimistic that, I think he stands as good of a chance as anybody to come in and be a good coach. I think our point guard position really needs a lot of mentoring and a lot of help, and he'll help with that. He was never the best player on the court, but he was always a leader. He knows how to win, and he's not going to settle for poor play. He's not going to settle for guys like J.R. Smith and Chris Smith goofing around, and Ray Felton getting out of shape. I mean, this is just not going to happen under his watch. Him and Phil Jackson are not going to deal with that. So I like it. It could blow up in their face, but, so could have any move. I don't think that this has a better or worse chance of working out than anything else they might have done. Especially Steve Kerr, who looked like was their number one target. They didn't get him. But I think we would be sitting here and saying the same thing about the Steve Kerr signing were it to happen.
All right, so the rumor is Melo's out. That's the report. He's opting out, which everybody expected anyway.
Well, why wouldn't you?
I mean...
No, he has to. It only makes sense for him to, because that's how he gets the money. So...
Can you see this being like a Darren Williams type move like a couple years ago, where he's going to opt out and then basically just go recruit team and then come back, re-sign with the max deal?
The problem with that is the Knicks don't have any cap room for that to happen.
Right.
The Knicks have to make a couple moves here and there to clear up the cap space.
Yeah.
For Melo to get a friend of his to join us.
Right.
So we have to probably trade Tyson Chandler or someone of that caliber that the Knicks would love to give up.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it would have to be Tim Hardaway Jr. or Shumpert as well.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of what Phil and Derek Fisher's plan has to rely on sort of waiting out the Amari and Bargnani deals, which are both on the books until next year. And you got to...
Stat still has the $25 million player option next year.
Yeah, I'm saying...
this summer.
Oh, it's this summer?
This summer is the option for him, and they're both this summer.
I misread that. All right.
So after this year, you got to sort of wait for that contract to get off the books, and I think that.
You mean Amari Stoudemire can't go out and get a big time contract?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. But I think that him being off the books and Bargnani being off the books, I think is a big part of the plan. I'm confident that Derek Fisher and Phil Jackson do have a plan. I'm confident that they will have presented it to Carmelo Anthony. I am confident that Carmelo Anthony is, to some extent, part of that plan. If he chooses to leave, hopefully they can get something for him, whether that's a couple draft picks or something like that. I don't know. I don't know what they can get, like in a sign and trade or something. But either way, I think Melo probably stays in New York, but there are other options that I'm sure are a little bit more attractive for him, like Houston and Chicago, I think were the two mentioned ones. But I think he stays, ultimately.
So Melo to Houston, and we'll trade him for Dwight Howard.
Yeah, I don't think they'll do that. They're going to get him for. They're not going to trade us anything.
Dwight Howard, Tyson Chandler, and Stoudemire in the front court. How big?
Yeah. I don't think that'll work. But yeah, I mean, I think he'll stay. It's just, call it a hunch. I don't think that he forced his way to New York to just leave like this.
Absolutely not.
I mean, but on the other hand, you cannot blame him at all if he did.
No, I mean, this is going to be a team that, if they return the same team, they'll probably make the playoffs. They were a game out of the playoffs last year with basically having the worst season they possibly could have had.
And they didn't listen. They didn't respect the coach.
Yeah,
I think the second week of November.
Right. So
the whole
if they return the exact same roster, I think that they'll wind up making the playoffs. Maybe bottom half of the playoffs probably, but they'll make it. So I don't think that it's a total waste of his time. But I don't know that they're really contenders, and I don't know that they really can be until after Amari and Bargnani are off the Bucks.
Yeah. It's just the Knicks are in cap casualty hell, like we've seemed to be our whole life as being Knicks fans.
Yeah.
But at least we got the product on the court to reciprocate back in the 90s when they were over the cap. But this year, it's really going to be interesting to see. They didn't respect Coach Woodson, and I know they're going to respect Phil Jackson. The resume speaks for itself. But I think it's really a no-win situation at the end of the day for Derek Fisher, because this is for everybody overall. Because if he wins, no one's going to give him credit. Pretty much like Spoelstra in Miami with Pat Riley being the general manager and the president of the team. It's Pat Riley's teaching him how to do everything.
Yeah.
Pat Riley's being the coach behind the scenes, but we don't know that. But if they lose, whatever, he's only a puppet for a Phil Jackson kind of thing. That's what I feel. That's what I'm worried about for Derek Fisher. And I think Knicks fans and fans of the NBA need to realize that he's his own coach. Granted, he can ask help for Phil Jackson. Obviously, he is the number one hotline 24/7 for him because he is the president of the team. But it is going to be Derek Fisher's team, and the Knicks. He has to get the Knicks as a whole, the whole team together, and buy into his system right away.
No, I agree.
After last season was just a complete cluster, and they took for granted Woodson and whatever happened the season before winning 50 games, and they thought it was going to be a cakewalk, and that's what happened last year.
Yeah.
100%. There's no doubt in my mind that happened last year.
Right. And but I think if there's any system that Fisher can get these guys to buy into, I mean, it's Phil's. It's it's a proven track record of winning championships, and a lot of this will rely on how well Fisher can hold the locker room. That locker room has had a lot of issues in the past, dating back to the Marbury years. I mean, we're talking 10 years ago at this point, where he would just basically feud with every coach that came in. And it really hasn't gotten that much better. J.R. Smith is kind of out of control, and Carmelo seems a little bit petulant at times and doesn't really buy in if he decides he doesn't like the coach. And not to say that he didn't try last year, because he did play well last year, but he really is going to have to keep hold of this team. But they have a track record, and I would think they would be stupid not to buy in. I don't think that anybody really likes losing, and if they don't buy in, they will lose again. So
it's okay. If Melo goes to Miami, J.R. Smith's going to his phone number.
I don't think that'll happen, but
whatever.
But J.R. Smith won't talk to him anymore. Wasn't that enough of a reason to go to Miami and no money?
I saw that tweet. I retweeted that. Actually, Keith's father did favor that one. That was one of my favorite ones. Andy Black. I know he's alive when he favored my tweets.
Yeah, so. He loves the Twitter.
And orange is the new black, apparently.
Right, exactly.
Good show, by the way. But
yeah.
So, all right. Knicks obviously don't have a draft pick.
Mm-hmm.
The Knicks don't have a lot of cap space.
Mm-hmm.
The Knicks need a point guard.
Patty Mills.
How are we getting this point guard that we need to be able to facilitate and move the ball around and be able to take care of the triangle offense for Melo and Amari and Tyson and Bungarni and J.R. Smith if he decides to play well and Tim Hardaway? Who is that? Who's going to be that point guard? And are we going to be able to find a way to trade Raymond Felton?
Trading Felton's going to be tough without including Shumpert or Hardaway. I don't think that I know that Patty Mills has been bandied about. Hopefully, I would like to see. He's one of the few. The Knicks are one of the few teams where he would come in and start immediately. So, I could see it from his perspective, but until he signs a deal, I'm not confident that he'll be here. It might wind up being Raymond Felton again. It might be Torrey Murray. They might give a little bit more minutes. Phil seems to like him. So we'll see. I mean, I really do believe that Fisher can sort of take somebody under his wing if they can get some undrafted free agent that they kind of like and just see if it works. I mean, it really can't be worse than it was last year. The Knicks have basically the worst point guard situation in the entire league, so it could really only get better by adding any level of talent. So, I'm not confident that they can necessarily make a big time trade or anything for like a Kyle Lowry or anything like that, but hopefully they can find somebody in the summer league or something, the D League, or if it's Torrey Murray or something like that. Or if it's Patty Mills, if they wind up getting Patty Mills for some sort of exception or, something to that effect, I would be happy with that too. But they really do need to upgrade their point guard position if they're going to be successful. It's a point guard driven league, and the fact of the matter is the Knicks point guard situation is really abysmal, and it needs to be addressed. And Phil knows that, I'm sure, so.
All right, absolutely. So who's going to be the defending? Who's going to be the champions next season?
Yeah, it's always hard to count out the Spurs and the Heat. I kind of feel like the Heat are going to get back there, and maybe the Spurs won't. They're sort of up there in age, and I feel like the Heat are the favorite, and that's who I'm going to say is going to win the title next year, unless something crazy happens and LeBron opts out.
LeBron's going to go to opt out and go get a mid-level with the Spurs so he can put it.
Yeah, maybe. He has enough money.
Keep the house in Miami, then you don't have to pay taxes.
Yeah. He just made a boatload of money off of selling beats.
That's right.
Yeah.
Sold his rights to the beats. Apparently he had like $300 million.
Yeah, so he's got that going for him.
Must be nice.
Yeah. For sure.
So at the real K Black 25.
That's me.
Anything coming out for Numberfire?
I have something in the works for fantasy football. We're really starting to gear up our fantasy football talk. So I should post something hopefully this week, maybe next week, about which teams sort of improved their wide receiver and tight end slots and how that might help their number one receiver. Looking at, how better or worse a team was when they didn't throw to their number one target. And, there's some interesting stuff about how much better Calvin Johnson was than the rest of his team.
Yeah, you could say that.
Yeah.
The Giants are definitely going to be bottom of that list as well.
Yeah.
Well, the Lions were in the Super Bowl. You saw the guy's tattoo.
Yeah.
Yep. Seems likely.
But there is a report that he actually drives. There was a picture of him getting into his car. He drives the car they drove in the Back to the Future movies.
Really? The DeLorean?
The DeLorean.
The one from the movie, or
No.
just a version?
Just a version. So for all we know,
He's already been to the future.
he already knows what's going to happen.
Man, that's true. We'll see.
So Stafford's going to be healthy. He's going to throw for 5,000 yards this year.
Yeah,
Break the
definitely.
touchdown record.
Put it down. Matt Stafford MVP. Bet on it.
Thanks, Keith.
Yep, no problem, guys.
Thank you.
SND Podcast is in no way affiliated with, associated with, produced, or endorsed by National Basketball Association or any of its affiliates.
Welcome back to episode 75 of the S&D Podcast Show. Dan and Steven are here. Once again, that was the score by Division 1.1. And we would now like to welcome in our good friend from Hockey Buzz, Dan Petriw. What's up, Dan?
Hey, Dan. How's it going?
Hey guys. Hope you're enjoying your summer.
Absolutely. I'm hoping you're enjoying your World Cup. Dan, like we know, is a big football fan. Well, us blowhards.
We call it soccer. We call it soccer. I said on Twitter yesterday. We win the wars. We choose names.
Okay, fair enough. I didn't see that.
And actually, a funny story. I saw some research on this. It was actually English colonists who started calling, or English immigrants who actually started calling the game soccer, and it was widely known as soccer until the 20th century. So people should get over that.
Okay, that's good news.
Right. All right. Anyway, sorry. That was just my little rant.
And like people know, he's also part of our S&D Sports bloggers. He's actually our soccer writer.
Yes.
So make sure to look out for some stuff from him coming up.
Before we start, sad news. If you don't know, follow Dan on Instagram and stuff. He did have a picture with Tony Gwynn. He unfortunately did work with him with ESPN for a bunch of years. Before we start, want to give us a quick couple words on how awesome, nice a person Tony Gwynn was?
I mean, it's been said quite a bit, but as great of a baseball player he was, and he, just turned 36 last week, so I saw pretty much his whole career. And when I was a kid, man, he was just, one of the best pure hitters I've ever seen. And as great of a baseball player he was an even better person off of it. I worked with him for a couple of years in baseball tonight, and he was just a class act all around, and he's definitely going to be missed. I know he has not been feeling well for a long time, and he was battling cancer quietly, but unfortunately we lost a great person yesterday. But at the same time, at least he's not suffering anymore. So definitely someone who's sorely going to be missed. And it was an odd day when I saw the news, because it was someone that was such a part of my childhood growing up. We're watching like This Week in Baseball and the Saturday game of the week, and you just, it wasn't like, back then it wasn't like, and I'm talking like, mid 80s, late 80s, early 90s, games weren't on every day. There wasn't a game on every night. There were no, there was no MLB extra innings or NHL Game Center. So like when someone like the Padres were playing, that might be your only chance to see Tony Gwynn for 5-6 weeks. So it actually kind of made it special. So it's definitely someone who's sorely going to be missed. And I just, prayers and thoughts go out to his friends and family.
Absolutely, and that's the one thing. Obviously, me and Steve never met Tony Gwynn, but we've always heard that he's always was a class act and everything like that. And it's always awesome and nice to hear coming from a person that actually spent quality time and actually working with the guy, because you know a lot of quality. You can see the person's traits when you work with them for so many hours in a given day or a week. So. That's really cool to hear that Tony Gwynn was everything that was advertised with that. So
and it's the same work ethic he put into hitting, he put into everything, and it just seemed like he always wanted to teach. He was always, and that's actually why he left ESPN. He went back to coach at San Diego State. And this guy could have been an analyst forever at any station he wanted to be. He could have been a hitting coach, probably a manager in somebody's front office, wherever he wanted. But at the end of the day, he wanted to teach. And that was something I always respected.
Now we're going to move on a little bit to the soccer. Some good news a little bit. Yesterday, probably 99% of the people that listen to our show know, USA ended up winning the first game. So, Dan, tell us what you took out of the first game. Versus
Okay, yeah, so everybody's excited. United States beat Ghana. It's been a while. They've knocked us out of the last couple of World Cups. And I usually don't say us, but we are Americans, so in this situation it works. But at the same time, they were awful. And if they play like this against Germany, it's going to be ugly. And they have to be better than they were yesterday. It was not good. They had some chances, but for most of the game, I felt like I was watching the Kings versus the Rangers, and we were the Rangers. Tim Howard was wearing a Lundqvist jersey because it just felt like they were running uphill. We can get into the X and O's, but I'm very happy they won the game. I'm very happy they got the 3 points, and Ghana's a really good team. They have some flaws as well. Every team in this tournament has some weakness that can be exploited, and but look. Ghana's a good team, and that was a quality win, but the United States really has to play better moving forward. And unfortunately, they should be catching Portugal at the right time this weekend, and hopefully they can come out with 3 points there. And if they do, we won't have to. The Germany game shouldn't really mean anything, because I'm so impressed with that German roster. It is just littered with stars. The guys on the German bench could probably get them out of the group stage if they just started them. And their bench is insane. Actually, most of the players they probably left home could probably get them out of the group stage as well. I'm just very, very impressed with that team. And the United States cannot go into that Germany game needing points to advance, or they might be going home.
Okay. Since me and Steve are pretty novice at soccer, Portugal actually got embarrassed by Germany. Was it because Germany was so good, or that Portugal is a little bit overrated because they only really have one player, that's Cristiano Ronaldo? Because I have a bunch Ronaldo. I'm sorry. Because a bunch of people at my job, big soccer fans, were like, "Yeah, Portugal is overrated," but always not knowing you only know that one guy, so you think their team's actually solid. What do you think is in store for that game on Sunday afternoon for USA?
Portugal are like the San Jose Sharks.
Okay.
That's I can give you a hockey reference there.
Absolutely.
They're like really good. They're really good when you don't need them to be, and then when the chips come down, the game's in the line, they kind of shrink. Okay. They are not good internally. There's a lot of infighting between the team. They're very the chemistry really isn't there. They take stupid penalties, and like Pepe got a red card in the last game. He's one of their better players. He's going to be out for the United States game. They also lost 2 guys to injury as well. So the United States is definitely catching them at the right time. And Ronaldo, it's funny. It seems like he's a world-class athlete, a world-class goal scorer. He's also a world-class brat. But if you can take him out of the game and frustrate him, he kind of goes away for a while. He's always dangerous. He can always score at any minute, but there's times where he just looks completely disinterested. And that's what they have to do. That's what the United States has to do against him. They have to just make him completely disinterested. But that will require the United States midfield to play significantly better than they did against Ghana. And the center backs were better than I thought. United States is very green on the back line. Some kids getting their first start, in the big stage. So it was kind of the first 15, 20 minutes were kind of a little queasy, but they settled down. But the United States has to get better in the midfield. Michael Bradley had a dreadful first game, and he is really the key to the United States. You can talk about Dempsey, and you can talk about Altidore, and that loss is going to be awful. Altidore's probably out the rest of the World Cup, and that's a tough loss because he's one of the few strikers they had who can possess the ball. He can create on his own. He doesn't need someone to get the ball. But if you think of a great midfielder, and Michael Bradley, it can be at times a world-class midfielder. It's like a great point guard in basketball, like a Steve Nash or a Magic Johnson. A great midfielder has the ability to get the ball into space, or someone else can run into it and have a real nice chance at goal. And Bradley, when he's on, he possesses the ball. He hits people in space. Great through balls, great scoring chances all around, and he can also score himself. But yesterday, I don't know what it was yesterday, but he was one of the worst players on the pitch. And if they have any chance of getting out of the group stage, he has to be 1,000 times better.
Okay, so that sounds good. I understand what you're saying with that. What other games this week or rest of the weekend? What else? What other matchups are you looking forward to in other group play?
Well, I think today actually was a pretty good day. Brazil and Mexico was an interesting game. It seems like Brazil is under an enormous amount of pressure to just dominate and run away with this thing, and it seems like it's getting to them a little bit. Although they had quite a few chances today, but Mexico stood tall, and that was a surprise. Even though it was a 0-0 tie, there were a lot of chances, and it was an entertaining game for the most part. That was a great tie by Mexico. You get a point against Brazil in Brazil. I think you have to be happy with that. I was interested in seeing the Belgians today. They're a team that everybody's talking about, and they are loaded with talent, with names people are familiar with: Lukaku, Kompany, Hazard. They have some world-class talent on the team, and all the experts out there have had them as their dark horse. So it's interesting to see how they respond to the pressure. And they weren't good in the first half today, but they really got it going in the second half and took control of that game and was able to win. Interested in to see how Spain reacts coming off a drubbing by the Netherlands. And they still have talent, but there's some worries there that they're getting a little bit older. I wouldn't want to play them after losing 5-1. They're going to be very angry. And the Dutch are a team that has always been so close to the. They made the finals 4 years ago, and they've always been so close to that next step and to win. And they have guys like Robert van Persie. If you have him on your team, you're in every match. Having a world-class striker who can score from anywhere is definitely sets you apart from a lot of teams. So they're a real fun team to watch, and I was really impressed with their play against Spain. So it should be interesting to see how it fares this week. And also, it'll be interesting to see if England can bounce back against their loss to Italy. Before we came on, I was looking at the matchups in each group, and I'm like, okay, this team should advance, this team that should advance. And then I got to the group with Italy and England, and I'm looking at it like, I have no idea who's coming out here. You can make a case for any 4 teams in the group. So I think that group is definitely the one to watch moving forward.
Absolutely. I don't watch too many soccer games, obviously, like I mentioned before, but I'm slowly trying to get in, watch it, and everything like that. And that was actually one of the few games I did get to see was that Italy-England game. And that was actually a nice, fun-paced game that I wasn't expecting. So I guess
I wasn't either, because Italy plays a very dreadful style of soccer that's comparable to the neutral zone trap that was played by the Devils years ago.
Gotcha.
So they try and win games 1-0, but that game really opened up, and it was significantly more entertaining than I thought it was going to be. So kudos to the Missouri for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So back to the USA a little bit. They did have some injuries coming out of the game versus Canada. And how do you think those injuries are going to affect them the rest of the way?
Oh, the Altidore one's just a killer. I mean, he's what there's no star in the United States team. There's no dominant player on the team. They have they have some really good players. Most notably Bradley, Altidore, Dempsey, and Tim Howard. Actually, Tim Howard is probably the closest person on the team to a star player. But Altidore was one of he's a big body, he's fast, He can create on his own. He doesn't need help to create a scoring chance. And to lose him really puts a lot of pressure on the bench. Now, Klinsmann would come under fire for not taking Landon Donovan. I don't necessarily disagree with that move. Landon Donovan is not the same player he was 4 years ago. He's definitely on the downward side. I mean, could you make an argument that he could come off the bench and provide a spark? Yes, maybe, but I think this will be a big test for Aaron Johansson to step up and fill the shoes of Altidore or possibly Wondolowski if he fails to do that. There's definitely a huge hole caused by the Altidore injury because he was one of the few players in the team that you could count on for scoring some goals, and he was a very electric and dynamic player, so he's definitely going to be missed. And you got to feel bad for the kid too. I mean, World Cup, the lights are on him, and 22 minutes into the game, right after having a scoring chance, he blows out his hamstring. So it's definitely a horrible injury, and it's one thing. There's certain injuries you can play with, like Dempsey got kicked in the face, and it's difficult, but you can play through that. But if you can't run in soccer, you're not going to be effective.
Of course. Okay. All right. I'm going to just make a general soccer question, especially with Americans. Obviously, right now it's not the most popular sport in the country. Various reasons why. But do you think with the younger generations, more kids are starting to play soccer more and more? I think me and Steve's generation was pretty much that cutoff where you either played soccer or you didn't play soccer as a kid growing up. It seems like everybody and their mother plays soccer now. Like a lot of children are starting to play soccer and enjoying it. Do you think these younger generations are starting to enjoy soccer and maybe make the viewership across this country even bigger? Because this year the MLS seems to be a little bit bigger. I know MSG's been promoting the hell out of it. The Yankee Stadium is getting a new. The MLS is joining a brand new team, like you wrote in our article on the SNDP Sports blog about the New York Football Club. So, do you think with the MLS and more kids playing soccer and soccer being more popular, do you think the sport as a whole in America is growing steadily? And also,
yeah, I definitely think.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So, not to.
Go ahead.
Also, a lot of things now, like I've seen throughout the playoffs, with NBC promoting the Premier League. I know I follow you on Twitter, obviously, and you're always all around it. Do you think us being able to watch the European games as well, and the MLS, do you think the sport is finally growing to what it was or across the world?
Well, I think you actually helped answer your own question because, growing up, I played, through high school, up to high school, and I'm from a soccer family. That's I'm not I'm first generation American, so that's when you're from Europe, that's something you live on. So it was definitely soccer has always been in my culture and my family, but I don't think the MLS can ever be. I'm pretty fairly confident. The problem is the MLS cannot compete with the rest of the world.
Oh no,
the
MLS cannot, I'm not saying that.
Here's why it can't compete with the other leagues. You're not going to get the best players because they just can't afford them. I mean, Manchester United spends more money on their bench than the New York Yankees roster.
Oh my God.
So they spend they spend upwards of 300 million pounds, not dollars, pounds a year. Like it's nothing, and people don't realize that. For example, Mesut Ozil, a very good midfielder, one of the better ones in the league, $40 million euro transfer fee to go to Arsenal, then another $25 million in his pocket, like nothing, boom, like that. There's so much money in Europe that I don't think the MLS can compete with that. However, with that being said, the MLS is significantly better than it was 5 years ago and 10 years ago. And I think the MLS is very good at marketing itself. It's not trying to compete with the big boys, but what it's doing is it's going into soccer-only stadiums, into smaller venues and smaller arenas where they can pack the crowds. They're also going into really good soccer markets and really good sports markets like Vancouver, Toronto, Seattle, Portland, Oregon. Now, Yankee Stadium having two teams in New York with the Red Bulls and then NYFC. They do a really good job of not getting too big, but at the same time staying small enough where they're profitable and they can make money off of it. And they're doing a good job of getting some players on the tail end of their career, or some players who still have a little bit left in the tank, and also keeping some of the better American players in this country as well. So I equate the MLS to really good, to like AA baseball, AA minor league baseball. AA minor league baseball is really good product because you're getting the best prospects, in baseball. You're always in AA, they're not in AAA. So if you get a product where the MLS is just a good product, it's not going to be, La Liga or Bundesliga or, the Barclays Premier League, but you can still have a good product that is very healthy and makes money. And I think that's where the MLS is right now. Now, with the kids in this country and the growth of the sport, I think the biggest thing is the best athletes in this country don't play soccer. Yeah. Now, if you're in Brazil, that's your first choice is to play soccer. Or if you're in England or Italy or some of these other countries, your first choice is to play soccer. LeBron James doesn't play soccer. LaShawn McCoy doesn't play soccer. Imagine those guys. Imagine LeBron James being a striker. Just let that sink in for a second. I'm sure he could do it. He's a world-class athlete. So it's like our best athletes, their first choice is in soccer. Now, however, you mentioned the availability of the game worldwide. It fits into an American viewing that's very fan-friendly. I wake up on Saturday morning at 8 or 9 o'clock. I watch Arsenal play, and then I watch maybe the game after that. And by 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I've watched 2 or 3 games. And I go about my day. The game is quick. It's 2 hours. It's not like you're sitting through a 5.5-hour Yankees-Red Sox game. And the biggest thing, too, is these kids have a chance to watch, German League now. They have a chance to watch Spanish, Italian, and most importantly, the Barclays Premier League, where all the money is. And these kids are saying, wow, this guy makes how much million a year? Wait, that's euros or that's pounds? That's not even dollars? Huh, that's interesting. So these, I definitely think, the growth of the sport and the availability in America will inspire some more kids to play and pursue it as possibly a first choice, because it's a very glamorous sport outside this country. And you watch the way these players are treated in Europe, and they're treated pretty harshly when they fail, but when they win, they're treated like rock stars, or even bigger than rock stars. Guys like Balotelli, Van Persie, Rooney, these guys are rock stars. Driving Bentleys and Maseratis with 15 girlfriends, treated like they're the second coming of the Beatles. So if you're a kid seeing that, you're like, wow, this is kind of cool. So there's definitely a cool aspect to it that you don't see in other sports. So that's definitely something that moving forward, could attract a lot of the younger viewers. But I think the availability in this country to watch any game we want now, it will really help the growth of the sport in this country. But with that being said, if you have American players who become superstar players, they need to not be in the MLS. They need to be playing for Manchester United. They need to be playing for Bayern Munich or AC Milan or Barcelona. You need the best players in the league in the sport playing in the best league. So it's unfortunate for the MLS. It's just I personally want to see the best players playing on the best teams. So
absolutely,
there's definitely hope. There's definitely hope for this sport for soccer in this country. If you go back 20 years, if you just keep looking back in 10-year intervals, it just keeps growing. So it's definitely encouraging. But the biggest thing is the availability of watching the rest of the world.
Absolutely. And not even 4 years ago, I have a good friend who's actually an immigrant from Ireland, and he was a very big soccer fan. He wouldn't be able to get the games as he would want all the time, obviously. So it wasn't that big of a split, but if I was still friendly with him and hanging out with him on a daily basis, I'm sure he would be up early watching those games like everybody else. Have you ever been to a Red Bulls game? Have you been to the new stadium? Because my friend's been not hounding me, but telling me, hey, you should come. I'm really tempted during the summer to take a look at it in the new stadium in Harrison. It's a couple years old, right?
I have not. Yeah, I've not been down there yet. I'm trying to. Unfortunately, whenever I've been free, they have not been there.
Yeah.
And like just last week, I was on vacation, but they weren't playing at all because there's not many games now with the World Cup and all. But I definitely am going to get down there this year. I'm hoping Arsenal's playing a friendly there, and I'm hoping to get to that as well. Because I'd love to see my favorite team play. I've never seen them play live before. They haven't been in this country in 25 years, so that's definitely something I'm trying to get to if I can get a reasonably priced ticket. So if anyone out there listening has tickets to those games and are reasonably priced, please hit me up on Twitter at DanDaniel78. With that being said, I definitely want to get down there and check it out. Because the stadium, I've driven past the stadium. It's gorgeous. I definitely want to get down there and see a game. I've been to a Cosmos game, and I've been to Lee. I've seen Team USA play a few times, but no, I've not been down to Red Bulls yet.
Okay, this is another question that I'm trying to learn, and I'm being respectful about it, unlike I've been in the past. What league is the Cosmos in? And like, I don't get how they were able to play the Red Bulls kind of thing. I know it was a friendly game and everything like that, but like, what levels are each teams in? Like, I was confused by that.
The Cosmos are a level down below the MLS. Think of like AHL and NHL.
Okay.
And anybody can play. You can play a friendly against anybody. That's like Arsenal's coming over to play Red Bull. Play Red Bull mostly because one of the most legendary Arsenal players of all time, now Thierry Henry, plays for the Red Bull, so they kind of have a good working relationship. So you can play a friendly match against anyone, and that was a pretty cool thing to do, actually, to get the Cosmos and Red Bull playing. So
and the Cosmos actually won, right?
Yeah,
they won 3-0. So that's kind of embarrassing.
Yeah, I suspect that you'll see that'll become a yearly thing. You'll be seeing a lot of that.
Okay. Yeah, that I was just very confused with that and like certain rules like that. So I'm like I've been saying, I'm a novice. I'm open to learning the game because it seems like America and like the sport as a whole has been cool for the whole entire world. Why not us? Sort of thing. We're gonna switch gears a little bit. Of course, we're talking to Dan Petriw from Hockey Buzz and also the SNDP Sports Blog as our soccer analyst. Hockey, since not his main passion, but one of them. Well, the Stanley Cup's over. The Rangers lost the Stanley Cup to the Los Angeles Kings in 5 games. Dan, what did you think of the series?
I thought the whole playoffs as a whole were phenomenal.
Yes, of course.
Definitely one of the most entertaining Stanley Cup playoffs I can remember in years, and I think it was great for the sport. It was great growth for the sport. The product on the ice every night was just compelling and entertaining, and it was just really good theater. It was like must-watch TV. So hats off to the NHL and all the teams involved. It was a really good playoff, and I picked the Kings to win in 6 games. I'm not surprised that they won the way they won as well. I thought the Rangers would give them everything they had, and I thought Lundqvist could be a difference maker. And at the end of the day, the reasons why I thought the Kings would win, their size, their depth down the middle, really good defensively. They were able to, and their ability to score goals was going to be the difference. And I thought, if the Rangers were going to win, they were going to have to, not get crushed in the corners, and Lundqvist was going to have to steal games, and guys like Rick Nash were going to have career series. And unfortunately, Lundqvist was a superstar in that series. But obviously the Islanders writer for Hockey Buzz, and you guys are Islanders fans, and we know how we feel about the Rangers. But in much respect to them for an amazing season, an amazing run. They're our rivals, but at the same time, we got to look at it rationally, and being fair and honest, they had a great season. So, hats off to them, and it was cool. Like, look, does it bother me that, a bunch of people in New York City wearing Ranger hats and stuff when they, just pretending to pay attention? Yes, it does. But at the same time, it's good for the sport. And anything that's good for the sport, in my mind, is good for all teams involved. So it was a really good, really, really good Stanley Cup final and a really good playoffs as a whole. And I can't wait for it to start back up again in October.
Absolutely. I'm excited for October as well. And honestly, this year has been a fun year because I took the duties of watching the Ranger games opposed to letting Steve take care of the Islanders, like we all know, since he's at 100% of the games. So it was really fun for me watching the Rangers from the first game of the night until, unfortunately, Game 5 of the Stanley Cup Finals. And in a million years, I would have never thought back in November or even February that the Rangers were going to make a run to the Cup. And it really was a fun ride seeing how they gelled as a new team, especially with Vigneault and everything like that. Obviously, there's a couple of things that could have went right with the Rangers if a couple players played well here and there. Unfortunately, Rick Nash to be one of them, and Brad Richards to be another one. But it was a great series. For some reason, I don't understand why. You got to give kudos to the Kings, but for some reason, the Rangers just didn't play a full 60 minutes. And 3 overtime games in LA, and you got to convert on at least one of those. So they should be still playing if they converted on one of those games right there. So it was a tough fourth series, but they just didn't have all their horses with them. And like Steve mentioned and everybody mentioned, I felt awful for Henrik Lundqvist. He almost made 55 saves. He was absolutely on his head. It just goes to show you on how awesome Jonathan Quick is and how good of a team the Kings were. They just never said die throughout the whole playoffs, and it's just amazing to see a team like that. And
the Rangers have a great goalie. Mm-hmm. They did possibly, arguably the best in the game. The Kings have the best team. That's what it came down to.
Absolutely. And
not by much, not by a wide margin, not by a significant wide margin, but enough. And the one thing you have to talk about the Kings too is they never panicked.
Never.
There was never any, even when they were down against the Sharks. And it's funny because I had the Kings in my finals, in my bracket. I had the Kings winning. I had them beating the Bruins. And so I was like an idiot after Game 3 of the Sharks, down 3-0. And my friends are, jabbing at me. And I said, if they win one, they're going to win the series. Same old Sharks. And as soon as they won Game 4, I'm like, well, everything's okay. Everything's fine. And they never panicked. And they got it going. And just look at the teams they beat before they even got to the Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
Game 7 at San Jose, they win there. Game 7 at Anaheim, they win there. Game 7 at Chicago, fall down by 2 goals twice, they win there. You have to tip your cap to them.
Oh, 100%. And it's really amazing. It's just like I told everybody, like we know like a broken record, my girlfriend and her whole family are Ranger fans. And
choice by you.
It is what it is. They nothing new with that. But the whole family, including myself, go, we do not want to play the Kings.
No.
And that was the scary thing.
The Blackhawks would have been tough, too.
Oh, no, absolutely, 100%. But the capability of coming back the way they do, and we saw it in Game 1, Game 2, and Game 5. Their comeback ability. And it's really what could have been. It's just, you got to tip your hat to the Kings, and hopefully they're the team to come in the next few years. I don't think any of them are really big free agents as of yet, right? Other than Gabriel.
No, most of the guys are locked up and they're young. Like most of their core is under 28, 29 years old. Quick's only 26, 27. Carter and Richards are right around 30. Although I think Richards, they're going to try and move him.
Yeah.
The Carter's not going anywhere. Dowdy is under 25, and I think Gabrick will stay there. I think that's a perfect fit for him, and I think he knows that.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to look at what the Kings do too. Does anybody in the league develop their young players better than the Kings? They ease them in slowly, and I'm speaking specifically of Tyler Toffoli and Tanner Pearson.
Oh, they both played phenomenal, especially Pearson.
I see, Manchester Monarchs play the Bridgeport Soundbreakers a lot. I see the Kings prospects play a ton. And over the past 5 years, maybe a little longer, I've seen Dustin Brown down there. I've seen Alex Martinez down there. Saw Jonathan Quick down there. And you can see it. You can see that these kids were getting developed. They were getting the ice time they needed down there. And you could tell even times when Jonathan Bernier was down there forever. It's like these guys are ready. They're absolutely ready to come up. And then when they bring them up slowly. They ease them into they start them on the third or fourth line. Then they ease the minutes up a little bit more. Then they ease the minutes up a little bit more. And then actually when Tanner Pearson had a bad game and he didn't hustle to a puck, they sent him back down, saying, look, if you're going to play up here, you hustle every puck. And that kind of light went off for him because then when he came back up, he was up for good. And they, now all of a sudden you got two 22, 23-year-old kids, both with 30-goal potential, playing with Jeff Carter. And, boy, that makes Jeff Carter look better, too. A few years ago, he was kind of like, you think he's kind of on the downside, and all he can do is score goals. All of a sudden, he looks like an all-star player again. And they just do a great job of developing their players and locking up their core early. and they're in really good shape. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that they're going to win 4 or 5 cups. They might not win another one because the West is so hard and the West is so deep, and you can't plan for injuries, and you can't expect to go through San Jose, Anaheim, Chicago every year and make it to the final. So, one of these years you might get bit in the butt and you might not make it, but they're going to be in the mix every year for the foreseeable future.
I absolutely agree with you, and I can't stress enough how good Toffoli's played. Obviously, Williams winning the Conn Smythe, good debate for that here and there, but well deserved. And Pearson, absolutely. I never heard of Pearson until the stand. Well,
It's
studying
funny.
him, and he played his butt off the last couple of games, and he was just a gnat. He was able to pinch on the dump and chase and the cycling. He was very impressive. He was one of the few players that I was like, wow, this kid's going to be good in a couple of years, even right now. I was really impressed by those guys, to name a few. Drew Doughty might win the Norris Trophy this year, give and take. That goal he made in Game 1 was absolutely ridiculous between his legs, able to snipe Henrik top shelf. So, like you said, they might not win another cup again, but it's no way shocking if they do find a way to repeat or come back in a year or two. Absolutely. It's
just funny because when we had all the Vanek talk, we had all the trade discussions, and there were a lot of rumors that obviously they went for Gabrick and they got him for a very good price. They chose Gabrick over Vanek, and probably if you think about it, Gabrick fits their style a lot better, and also Gabrick was willing to work hard. That's another story for another time. But when there was rumors of Vanek going that way, I was like, boy, if we could get Toffoli out of this trade, that would be great. And then when it didn't look like it, I said, shoot, if we can get Tanner Pearson out of this trade, that would be great. People are like, who the hell is that? Who the hell is that? I'm like, just wait. Wait till you see this kid. He's going to be special. And like I said, now the Kings look like they have 2 kids with 25 to 30 goal potential on the second line. And it also takes a lot of pressure off the top line as well. So they are a fun team to watch. And I honestly, if they stay healthy, most of that core is together, I don't see them going away.
It feels good to be right every now and then, huh?
Yeah, every so often. I'm wrong most of the time, so it's good to grab one. It's good to be right once in a while.
All right, since you're also the Islander beat writer for Hockey Buzz, figure we'd give you a couple Islander seconds. Only seconds, not minutes, because we don't have all night. I'm just kidding. What are you looking forward to in this offseason?
Hopefully addressing some more needs that they have on the team. Obviously, getting Halak signed before the draft is huge. Getting him in, getting that crossing off that big question mark. Probably the biggest question mark is obviously really good. That's a great start to the off season. I don't know if Dan Boyle's going to stay. He was offered a 2-year contract. I heard around 10.5. Others have said 10.8. Regardless, it's a substantial lot of money for a player of his age. Honestly, if he signs, that's great. I don't think he's going to. I also think it's the end of the world if he leaves. I like Dan Boyle, but he's on his last legs, and he would certainly help. But I do think they still obviously have to address defense, and they have to find a way to get a top 4 defenseman in, come hell or high water, whether it's trading, the assets, some of the assets they have. I definitely think the fifth. I actually know that Garceau is aggressively trying to move the first pick in their first pick in the draft, the 5th overall, next week's draft. I know that is definitely used as a bargaining chip to try and get a defenseman in here. And a lot of players in the roster are not off limits if the right trade is out there. So they just got to find the right trade partner and try and bring in a defenseman or aggressively go after a defenseman, come July 1st. But, that's the free agent market is very thin this year at defense specifically. So, if they can address the problem via trade, I think that'd be a lot easier because, as we know, players aren't lining up to run to Long Island as of yet. So if they can address it and get a player under contract, that's something they need to do. They also need a lot of people saying that they need a top forward to play with Tavares and Okposo. I keep hearing on my Twitter feed. Everybody wants, a superstar or a star to play with them. And I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think I think it is more important that the Islanders find a reliable 20 to 25 goal scorer to play with Franz Nielsen than it is to try and, break the bank to bring Vanek back or trade for Evander Kane like some want to do. It is absolutely critical that the Islanders get some depth and some balance in this lineup. Franz Nielsen had a career year last year playing with a cast of characters and Josh Bailey. Josh Bailey cannot be on that second line. You also can't put two kids on the second line as well. I don't mind if one of the kids is on the second line, but you can't have two kids in Nielsen. There has to be just a reliable veteran presence on the second line. I think Radim Barbata out of Phoenix would be a nice fit. Milan Michalek out of Ottawa. He's not the skater he once was, but I still think he could pop in 20 or 25 goals. Jussi Jokinen would be a good fit. Maybe Ryan Callahan if the price is right. Regardless, they just have to. And I'm not looking for an 80-point guy. I'm not looking for a 50-goal scorer. I'm looking for 25 goals and 50 points on the second line. They can add just some reliable veteran presence there, so you don't have to put so much pressure on the end forwards. I think internally, Brock Nelson or Anders Lee, would be fine on the first line, and I think they could. You get into training camp, you let them compete, and a lot of people I spoke with, they're a little hesitant of that, but I propose this argument. Matt Molson, P.A. Parento were originally signed to be depth players, possibly going to Bridgeport, possibly starting the season there. They went through training camp, and they clicked with Tavares, and the rest is history. Brad Boyes was brought in on his last licks. Anyone who's played with John Tavares has been successful, with the exception of Pierre-Marc Bouchard. We can throw that one out. But other than that, so if you look at Matt Molson, you look at P.A. Parento, you look at Brad Boyes, what makes you think that Brock Nelson won't be successful on that line, or Lee wouldn't be successful on that line? And one of the reasons too, I want one of them to fight out to win a job there is I think the Islanders need some size in that first line and some sandpaper and a guy who will be willing to get their nose dirty. Maybe a more complete version of Matt Molson. I think Lee could potentially be that, and I think Brock Nelson has a ton of talent. So I think if you put that size with Poso and Tavares, I think you could have a good line here. And I don't think it's unrealistic to get 20 goals out of Brock Nelson if he's playing with Poso and Tavares. And now you have a second line winger providing 20, 25 goals. You have balance. They can't be a one-line team. So if you go in, you make that huge splash, and you have a great first line again, and then nothing after it, you're going to be in the same boat you are this year. There's going to be question marks up and down. And it's one thing to have faith in the kids, but it's another thing to put them in position to fail. Some people want to put Lee, Strome, and Nelson on the same line. Why would you do that? That's not conducive to any of those kids. You put them with quality players, and you lower your expectations a little bit, and you hope they grow. So obviously a defenseman, a second line winger, and a backup goalie. And the Islanders, I won't say they would be a playoff team next year, but I think they would be in the mix. I think they would be close to the 8th spot, maybe 9, 10. I won't say they would make the playoffs, but they would definitely be in the hunt. And I think that would be a significant improvement over last year.
All right, you mentioned Brock Nelson. Of course, he's my pick to be at least the first guy to try out to play with Tavares. In my opinion, I think that he's got the body, and he showed that he can get in front of the net and play.
Yeah, that's the nice thing about camp though too, is you can try Nelson there, and you can try Lee there, and you have the six preseason games or 8 preseason games. How many? It seems like a lot, but it'll give you a chance to look at both these kids and give them a long look and see which one clicks better. Nelson probably has a better. They both have really good shots. Nelson's probably the better skater at this point, but Lee in front of the blue paint, it's really hard to move, and he scores ugly, filthy, dirty goals, and that's something that translates well in the National Hockey League. So I think either way you go there, you let camp play out, and you see who fits best with them. But I think the internal options to play with Tavares and the Poso are pretty good.
Now the rumor out of Toronto is fire sale. James Van
Possibly.
Riemsdyk. Possible fire sale. What, including a 5th-round pick, would bring in a guy like James Van Riemsdyk?
A
The
5th
fifth
round
pick, you mean,
is-
right?
5th overall pick. I mean.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like,
I really like James Van Riemsdyk. I mean, if he's available, like, you know, I just
pretty
said,
much
I
the
just
whole
went
team,
over this.
other than Tavares.
I just went on this huge spiel about not needing a first-line winger. If James Van Riemsdyk is available, you have to not only kick the tires, you have to ask him to roll down the window and talk to him too. I think
You'd think the whole team, other than Tavares.
if I'm Toronto, I obviously would want the 5th pick. I would think too, if I'm Toronto, I would want one of Reinhardt or Pulak. So I think that would get it done. Now, if you're an Islander, if you're going to Snow, do you want to do that? I guess is the question. Maybe, you know, would the 5th pick, Scotty Mayfield or Polka, and maybe Grabner get that deal done? I don't know. But I think they have the pieces there to get it done. It's just a matter, you know, how attached are you to some of these players?
Gotta get that done.
Well, there's also that rumor that Phaneuf apparently to Carolina, and it would involve not Jordan Stahl, who's the older Stahl.
Eric Stahl?
Eric Stahl.
Okay.
Interesting.
I saw that.
I also heard that Toronto's trying to get up to the first pick too, with Florida. There were some rumors about Phaneuf and the 8th pick for the first pick overall, so they want to take Ekblad. So I don't know. I definitely think Toronto is going to move some players, and if Van Riemsdyk is one of them, you really have to give that strong consideration. I think we talked about size and skill, and you know, we talked about Nelson's size and skill and Lee's size and skill and what they project as NHL players. Kind of have similar path to what James Van Riemsdyk already is. So if you can get someone like that, and you know, depending on the price, I definitely would give it a strong look. Now here's the thing: Toronto is up against the cap, big time. His salary is, I believe, $4.5 million. So you're kind of doing them a favor by taking that off their books. So maybe, you know, you don't have to give up the grade A prospect to get him because you're helping them out financially. So that's something to consider as well too.
All right. Dan Noodle 78 on Twitter.
Yep.
HockeyBuzz.com. SNDPODCAST.com.
Yep. You'll have something new. You got to check it out this weekend, and we'll get something up in the World Cup for you guys.
Awesome.
So definitely check it out. But appreciate you guys having me on as always.
Not a problem.
Thanks,
Our pleasure.
Dan.
Thank you for teaching us the game of soccer. Appreciate it.
I'm by no means an expert, but I definitely am a huge fan of it. So
More
I
than
appreciate
both
you
of
guys
us.
having me on to talk about it.
More than both of us put together. But as always, thanks again. You're going to listen to more Division 1.1, and we'll be right back.
SND Podcast is in no way affiliated with, associated with, produced, or endorsed by the National Hockey League or any of its affiliates.
Welcome back to the S&D Podcast. You just listened to Division 1.1. This week's song was The Score by them, of course. Once again, thanks to both Keith Black and Dan for coming on, talking about World Cup, the Stanley Cup, and the NBA Finals, respectively. Once again, Steve, what a great show. I know we're both not big soccer fans, but I'm slowly trying to get involved. I'm not saying I'm going to be the biggest soccer head hooligan, like they say in Europe, but it's going to be interesting. I'm trying to keep pace of Team USA, obviously, but it really is going to be interesting to see what the rest of the World Cup has to offer for Team USA and everything like that. So, are you excited for the World Cup?
I am. I mean, I'm not really into soccer, like you mentioned, but it's the World Cup. It's just like when people who aren't into hockey get into the Winter Olympics.
Yeah. That's a good analogy.
The country comes together when you got those three letters on a jersey.
Yeah,
that's what it comes
much.
to, no matter what sport it is.
And I'm gonna try to make it to a Red Bull game as well. So I'm kind of excited with that as well.
Well, Cosmo games are local, and they're only like $10 to get in, I think it is.
That's cool. Yeah.
Just to keep that in mind. SNDPODCAST.com. Sign up for the newsletter. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on Instagram. Like us on Facebook. Division 1.1. Like them on Facebook. We've been out a lot. If you've been to any of the shows, they're looking for photos. I know they've been working very hard on the new album. I haven't spoken to Brian in a while, so I don't have an update officially, but I'll get one for you guys for next week. Thank you for tuning in this week for episode 75. Next week we have episode 76, and we will see you guys there.
Later, guys. Have a good week.